Over a year ago at this point, I ran a Pokemon Draft League where we tried to save the Scarlet and Violet metagame. Scarlet and Violet has been overrun by so many powerful Pokemon. Iron Valiant, probably the poster child for one of the most broken Pokemon that we've seen conceptually added to the Pokemon Draft League metagame. And in that league, we tried to ban just a bunch of different Pokemon to see what we could do to make the format a little bit better. We even banned Terra in a way to see if we could create a format more in line with the power level of Oras and Usa. In that tournament, our team actually won the whole thing as I piloted a pretty broken team with Terapagos, Greninja, and Raging Bolt. Terapagos, probably a Pokemon that should have been banned the first time. So fast forward to today, we are back with this concept again. We are trying to build the Oras Usum style metagame within Scarlet and Violet, and Terra is back as well in a brand new Wi-Fi Draft League project with some of your favorite Pokemon creators. If you're excited for today's video introducing the project, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video if you have not already. This is going to be super awesome. There will be links in the description to all of the coaches, the Draft League server, and you won't want to miss a single upload of this great league. So let's get into what we did last time. And you'll see on the tier list I have, we're going to go over the top 18 to 16 pointers here and see some of the Pokemon that were banned that probably shouldn't have been and will be reintroduced, and Pokemon that we missed last time that definitely need to go on the ban list this time. The main two Pokemon that need to go are Great Tusk and Terapagos. I was someone who really underrated Terapagos coming into its introduction to the metagame and really kind of underestimated how powerful its Terra Shell ability was with the combination of various setup set options that it had access to. And having used it the last time we did this to good effect, winning the tournament, at least on the team side, coming in, I think, third on the individual side, it just was so obvious how good this Pokemon is and was. And honestly, for what it provides, I think pound for pound, probably the third best Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet Draft League right now. Definitely one that when we look about how we want to bring the power level of the format down, create a Draft League UU, if you will, Terapagos is easily one of the first Pokemon to go. And Great Tusk is another big example of a Pokemon that, you know, it's probably in the 4 or 5 range for a lot of people, but the combination of Rapid Spin, Close Combat, and Headlong Rush, this Pokemon is very difficult to manage, has access to knockup as well, a very, very powerful physical attacker while enabling the hazard removal game, and is being a setup sweeper oftentimes if you use the Terra mechanic. Those are probably the two big misses on this board. A lot of the other things that would have been quote-unquote potential misses would have come in the Terra budget, and Terra wasn't allowed here, and Terra is going to be back in this time around. So if you look at some of the Pokemon that are not here that you'll expect to see back, Urshifu was one of the Pokemon we banned both on the Rapid and the Single Strike side last time out that I think just haven't really found a good foothold in the metagame. They'll be allowed with Terra as well. They are definitely good Pokemon. You know, let's not get that twisted, but a lot of Pokemon like Terra Keldeo have really kind of shot up and overtaken them in terms of their role in the metagame. So those are Pokemon I think we were a little bit hasty to ban last time. Chiyu is one of those Pokemon as well that we banned last time outright, but will be allowed with Terra this time. And a lot of that was because when I made this, the parameters I went with more so than creating a Draft League UU or Usum style metagame was I just wanted to ban the Pokemon that I disliked. And a lot of the things that I dislike about Draft League, specifically in terms of how SV has gone, is a lot of the very, very forced and predictable prep lines that Pokemon like the Urshifus and the Chiyus can create. One of the things that's great about some of the older formats is you have a lot more flexibility and creativity to kind of flex your building prowess and your knowledge, which I think is something I want to harness in this league itself. So one of the Pokemon that you'll see that I have banned this time and will be on the ban list still going into the next one is Sneasler. And while that Pokemon does often just use Gunk Shot as a more powerful option, I think the Force Prep of Dire Claw is still enough of a hindrance on the format that I think it's worth just removing that Pokemon outright, just due to the fact that I think it's just generally unenjoyable. It doesn't add really much in the metagame. Its usage is pretty low, and when it is used, it doesn't really provide positive impact on the game due to the fact that you just have to risk Dire Claw a lot of the time, or force really linear Dire Claw Covert Cloak prep. So look, this is a personal opinion. I'll take the L if you guys don't if you guys don't agree, but for me, we're gonna remove Sneasler. Just enjoy the metagame without Sneasler. So getting into this league, the big thing we're doing is Terra Captains, reintroducing some of the most powerful things that you can do in this metagame is use the Terra to either set up, use it defensively, offensively. There's so much you can do with Terra in this metagame, and it requires a lot of focus in a metagame like this where we're bringing the power level down to really focus in and improve the format. There are two really big data points I want to call out for Autumn Seasonal and DCL3 that really kind of impacted our decision making. So when looking at the Terra Captains, there's a few things to note. On this list already, Great Tusk is already banned. So that's a Pokemon we don't have to worry about from the Terra Captain side on whether we allow it or not. What really comes in is the Terra Captains that we want to ban. And there were a few kind of key things to look at. They're kind of a big three if you think about Terra Captains in SV right now, at least from my perspective, is the Raging Bolt, Tornado Starion, and Zarude. Zarude is one that people thought was basically just going to be permabanned at a certain point last year. That has turned out to just not be the case. It's kind of found a good home and, the big three of Terra Captains, if you will, but certainly one that is kind of very allowable and back to being drafted on the back end of drafts in round 1 and 2. Tornado Starion really cemented itself as the second best Pokemon in the format as a Terra Captain. You'll see that often go around pick number 2, and then Raging Bolt, gets picked a little bit near the back half of round 1, but solidified itself at least in usage as the number 1 Terra Captain in Scarlet and Violet for Autumn Seasonal. And if we go here to DCL3, we see a pretty similar trend with Keldeo actually moving up to being drafted on all 5 possible drafts it could be in the Scarlet and Violet metagame. This is a Pokemon that has really dominated the last couple of months, and I think is honestly going to end up in usage up in the same tier as these 3 at the top that we saw in Autumn Seasonal. The main thing here that I want to call out before we show off our ban list is that you'll see here Hydrapple drafted on 3. Hydrapple was really underrepresented in Terra Captains in the Autumn Seasonal draft board, and that was one thing I thought was very, very interesting. This is a Terra Captain that has, I think, really stood out and is probably the 5th best Terra Captain right now in Scarlet and Violet Draft League, just in terms of its usage with the Regenerator ability. Being able to change its type is just so crucial for a Pokemon like this. The Nasty Plot sets are really, really good, and the defensive combinations you can build with this Pokemon are just undeniable. And while you look at this metagame, it's kind of a little bit static. You'll see Pokemon like Iron Moth, Gliscor, and Iron Crown get a lot of usage. Gliscor and Iron Crown are actually the 2 Terra Captains I have on my Autumn Seasonal team. That video is coming out in a couple of months. I think something like Hydrapple, while will be on our ban list, is not drafted as much as these other ones. I think if you look at the DCL numbers and how often it's drafted, it's definitely underrepresented in a lot of draft leagues, and one that I think if was allowed in this environment without a lot of powerful Pokemon to pressure it, like Iron Valiant, Great Tusk. Obviously, Great Tusk just dies to like grass moves and stuff, but there are a lot less powerful Pokemon to deal with, and Hydrapple becomes so much better in those environments. And so now let's get into the roster and the league that we are bringing you starting next week with Draft Analysis, Draft Jam 1. We have 14 amazing coaches ranging the Wi-Fi scene. We have some Showdown players. Kaz has decided to play this season. We have Glop, his first ever Wi-Fi league, I think, one of the mainstays in the Team Tour scene. We have a lot of great Wi-Fi players that you've seen and known to come to love. Goldoa Dragon, Amel, Gentleman Thomas, so much to look forward to. And let's talk about the draft board. And here is our draft board for Draft Jam 1. Let's get into what the bans we did on the straight up Pokemon side to start with. Meowscarada, Deoxys Speed, Darkrai, Iron Valiant, Great Tusk, Terapagos, and Sneasler are all Pokemon you will not see at all in this draft league. Some of them are very, very obvious, right? Iron Valiant is the consensus best Pokemon in the format, and if you're doing this concept, that Pokemon has to go. Meowscarada is one of the Pokemon then we banned. This is one that we had some fruitful discussion, but at the end of the day, if we're going to do a draft league UU basically style format, we probably shouldn't include the consensus third overall pick, at least as it is currently in the SV metagame. If we get into some of the other ones, Deoxys Speed is a Pokemon that has kind of typically not been included in some of the Wi-Fi centric projects we've done with these 14 to 16 player draft leagues. I feel like the speed stat with this Pokemon is just so dominant in the builder, and in terms of its usage on the 8-Mon Showdown side, not very high, but I think that once you spread out the wealth of Pokemon available to you and you thin out the board, its impact on this metagame is going to be so much more than you see in the typical 8-mon format where it gets drafted round 2 a lot of the time. And I think a Pokemon that we would just be better off not having. Darkrai, Sleep has been on the chopping block in Draft League for quite a while in terms of the Scarlet and Violet. We're just going to sidestep the problem here by saying Darkrai is too powerful. And as one of the definitely top tier speed options, it definitely is, at this point, I think, a little bit too powerful for the environment that we are trying to kind of create here. Then the other ones, Great Tusk and Terapagos, I think are pretty self-explanatory. Now, it does remove a lot of spinners from the board, so this will make hazard stacking a little bit better. 2 of the premier hazard removers removed from the metagame, and we've kept a lot of the powerful Terra Captains kind of in that second tier of Terra Captains that are very good offensively. So you may see that as a strategy that a lot of coaches employ. But I think offensively, Great Tusk and Terapagos are just too good for a format like this. And if we want to bring the power level down, these are 2 of the Pokemon that are clearly bringing the power level up in this metagame, and ones that I think are pretty easy candidates to go. And then Sneasler, I hate Sneasler. Look, this is my league, I do what I want. You can disagree if you want, that's perfectly fine. The interesting conversation here was the Terra Bands. And we went back on these ones for quite a while, actually, in terms of what we actually wanted to do in terms of the Terra Bands. The obvious 3 to go are the Torn, Raging Bolt, and Zarude at the top. These are the consensus best 3 at this point in time, and the ones that will be drafted the most in basically every league for Scarlet and Violet, kind of from here until the end of time. There are kind of 2 other groups of ones that we went to. Keldeo and Hydrapple were the next 2 on the chopping block to go. And Keldeo is kind of, in terms of usage, tied in DCL3 with those top 3 that we just talked about, and is seeing so much more usage in Autumn Seasonal, and is one of those Pokemon that I think has really enabled a lot of the success we see from some of the top tier Pokemon in this format, and has been really shown to dominate this metagame. And I think is as I said earlier, I think it is going to push and kind of solidify itself in that 4 slot and make kind of a big 4 in terms of the Terra Captains. The other ones, we'll see. Hydrapple we put in this category as well, kind of in the next tier list to ban. But the other ones that are going to go are Enamorus and Ogerpon Wellspring. And these final 3, I think, are considerations to the fact that this format is going to be a lot less powerful. And when the format is a lot less powerful, a lot of these Pokemon that are very powerful offensively, like Enamorus and Ogerpon Wellspring, and then Hydrapple, they're going to put pressure on the format in a way that I think is going to make it even a bit too difficult to deal with. While I think the format now in SV has a lot of tools to kind of manage them, once you take away a lot of the power in the format and teams become a little weaker, as I said, Hydrapple becomes so much more difficult to kill. Enamorus just becomes so much more powerful. When a lot of the Terra Captains at the top of the board are really good at kind of holding back the Enamorus, Tornadus being the main one with Terra Steel here. Hydrapple can even hold it back with Terra Poison, right? But this is one of those Pokemon that really puts a lot of stress on a lower power environment. And then Ogerpon Wellspring, I think, is one that has gone back and forth with a lot of discussion on whether people actually think it's good, really good or not. This is a Pokemon that I think can struggle with a lot of the Terra Captains that we banned. Terra Dragon Tornadus Starin is a great way to deal with Ogerpon. Raging Bolt can be a Pokemon that can manage that Pokemon as well if you want. Zarude has gameplay against it. Hydrapple, we took away 4 Pokemon that have really good gameplay against Ogerpon Wellspring. You kind of had to do something about that. So those are the 7 that we banned. There could be less. Enamorus is one that I was a little bit on the fence on because I don't think we removed too much of the counterplay to it. But certainly if we're thinking in terms of what are some of the most powerful and used Pokemon, this is definitely one of those at the top of the list. And so that is Draft Jam 1, the Draft League starting next week. Draft analysis and draft stream. You definitely won't want to miss that next Saturday. This is a format I'm super excited for. One of the things I love about Pokemon Draft League is long, drawn-out games, big prep decisions coming up, over the course of multiple turns. And as someone who's played a lot of SV, I do enjoy it. I think it's been one of the greatest formats that we've had. But, it comes to think, it's what I love about Draft League is a lot of the things we got to do in RS and USM, play long, drawn-out games, have a lot of interesting, small, minor prep decisions that matter, make it so one turn doesn't dominate as much. And I think about it, man, what if we had this within the confines of Scarlet and Violet 2, and we just make the perfect Draft League format? That's kind of what I'm going for here. That's what I'm excited to see. That's why I'm super happy that we've got a great group of coaches here putting this to the test for the second time and I am super excited. You'll want to get subscribed to all of the coaches in the description down below. You want to stay tuned for their draft analysis and the draft stream where we go over what the round 1 looks like, what round 2 looks like, compare it to current Scarlet and Violet, and then maybe do a power ranking of all of the teams at the end. So that is all I have for today. If you guys haven't already, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. My draft analysis will be on next week, and we'll see you all next time.